Good morning, everybody. So we're just going to get set up here and then we'll be ready to go. Get this out to everybody and then we're good. Okay, let's click over here and get this off into the Twitterverse. Let me put that in the trading room. Today is May 4th, Fed decision day. For those that watch the live stream, I get asked to do that a lot. Let's just focus here and go. And let me just drop this in the video room, in the trading room, and then go from there. And let's just put this on Twitter, and then I'm good. The AMD's earnings were really good. Let's just see here. So make sure I got this popped up. All right, let's get this online. And then we're good. Perfect. And throw this up. So, I mean, the best quarter that I've seen, best earnings quarter I've seen is AMD. I'm just going to let everybody funnel in before we begin. And then we'll go from there. Fed decision day. There we go. Coffee and charts live. And then we'll just drop the link in here and then we're ready to go. There we go. Boom. Perfect. So let's get to it. Now, for me, the most important thing of any company that came out with earnings today is going to be AMD. You're holding the line right here. Now look at this, what you're doing pre-market. Okay, so you're bidding up, you're breaking out. The quarter was excellent. You can get up to this. I talked about this in last night's video. You can easily get up to that 110 level. I don't see any reason that can't happen. Bear with me, drinking hot coffee, so there might be a little slurping today. Now, you should be able to push up to this level. You'd still be in a downtrend, but it looks like you're going to hold here. Now, if you pull back at all, I would be very interested in adding. I'm very, very apprehensive to buy anything that is bidding up until we see the Fed meeting. Lyft was an absolute disaster. We could talk about this. You know, it's really hard to say to short right here. You really want it to bounce higher and then maybe find a spot that you could get the short off, but this was just an absolute disaster. Even Uber, which had really good numbers, in my opinion, beat expectations. As soon as you got back to break even, everybody's like, yeah, I'm just going to get out of this and I'm going to wait and see what happens, because they were down over 10% last night. So Uber is still going to have some shakeout because of that. So something to think about. I would not be rushing into either one of these names. So, and we'll see what happens, but we'll go from there. Overall, I just don't see a sense of any real reason to rush to do anything until the Fed meeting. Now, expect earnings to drive the market, but expect the Fed to really control the pace of which way we go. If you look across the board on data that was released today, you had the mortgage rate come out at 5.3%. That's not really that bad. Exports and imports were kind of disastrous. Trade balance came in a little light versus where it was supposed to be. So I have a negative 107 billion. We came in at 109 billion, 109.8. That's not great. So, there's a lot of data that's supposed to come out today. Non-manufacturing PMI comes out at 10 a.m. That could affect us. 10:30 crude oil futures. So there's some data out there that could definitely come out that could affect the market. And we'll have to see how that plays out. But overall, I think what's going to start happening here, and I think you're going to start seeing it, is you're going to start getting a stock pickers market. So that's usually how this shakes out after big corrections. You get into a stock pickers market. Let's get rid of all these old annotations. And I'm not so sure that this is the sector. this just looks absolutely awful in comparison to the rest of the rest of the space. I mean, this is just disastrous, and I'm not entirely sure what they're going to be able to do about it. Here, to me, they got to do something, but this is it's just awful. So let's just see what happens. But if I'm looking at this, and I would not want to be a buyer of this. And, right now, if you break that 28.37, this could go a lot lower. Uber was so concerned about what Lyft's earnings looked like that they came out and pre-announced. They were supposed to come out tonight, I believe, and they came out today. So something to think about. I really like this name, and this is what I'm focused on. Let's talk about, just while we're waiting, if you have questions, just throw them in. But in regards to things along this line, like the Qs, look, I'm going to clear this out, this text. But if you just focus on what's going on out there and the line, right, and where you're drawing your little line on seeing where your support and resistance is, you're fighting right here. Now, you're over by 19 basis points if you look at that. It's not a lot, but I do think that we could absolutely push and go higher. I don't think there's any question about that. So that's definitely something that I would consider if you saw, and something that you can think about. But I would be really careful here. It's a lot of this is going to be dependent upon what the Fed does today. And I'm not really sure why Biden feels the need to speak at the same exact time as the Fed meeting. It's kind of silly, that he's going to do it. So, but we'll see what happens with it. Now, CVNA is one that we've been talking about, a short. As far as blowing up, you're down another 4% this morning. Look, this thing's done. Like this has real issues. You really want to be shorting and adding to your short on any rally. Just haven't had one. So what we want to see is any kind of rally. And we just haven't had it. Since that secondary, they've just been in a spiral. And this technically what's going on here with CVNA is just called the death spiral. All they keep doing is adding debt and equity and debt just to keep the company afloat, and it doesn't work out. There's a reason Apollo bought those bonds, and that's so that they can get control of the company when this runs into an issue. That's why they bought them. So for me, for them to come out and buy those bonds to get control of the company eventually is, it's a way of them getting their foot in the door. Is the best way to explain it. But I don't see any reason to assume this is going higher. But just focus on what's working. Lng is breaking out, even on bad commodity hedging. Some of these guys just don't know how to hedge or to get out of the way of the hedge. Or they leave the hedge on too long. But Lng is breaking out. The coal is not going away. Like, this stuff's not going away. This one, they have bad hedging. And eventually this will catch. And people will understand that they're going to unwind the hedging. And we'll trade up on that, but it's just not there yet. The next one to come out with earnings that's in the space is AMR, and that's a coin toss. That can go either way. Pardon the slurping, but it's a hot coffee day. A lot going on. So, but you have to realize that, like, you're dealing with earnings tomorrow. So if you buy this, you have earnings tomorrow. I can't stress that enough. So this whole market is going to be affected. Right? AMD, Arch will be affected, BTU. Everyone will be affected by AMR tomorrow and their earnings. That's in that space. So, but overall, I don't see any reason why this is not getting back up to all-time highs. I just don't see any reason for that to happen. So, I mean, the easiest trade in the world to me is just Exxon. It really is. Like, just looking at it, it's just the easiest trade in the world. It should go up it should just continue to grind higher. There's really very little reason that that's not going to happen here. Look at this chart. Let's get rid of this data. I mean, there's just no reason you're not going back to here. So it's a perfect storm for the company. And it should trade back to highs. I think it will. Frankly, between the dividend yield that you're going to get and the sector that they're in, there's just very little reason to not own this company. So keep that in mind. I mean, that's kind of where my head is with it. So let's just keep going through this. So, hey, Bannon, PTEN and J. Let's take a look. And let's just keep going and go save. Hold on one second. Okay, perfect. PTEN. So let's see what's going on here. Yeah, I just don't have a lot of volume. Let's get rid of these lines because this is not helpful at all. It's just noise right here. Yeah, I mean, you're kind of wedged in there, right? So see if you can flip and get over this one, or earnings. You see you already have earnings behind you. I think that you're building these, you know, you're kind of building these flags out. You're kind of seeing that pullback on everything, right? We saw it here too, a little greater. I would just be careful. You know, just make sure it actually goes. How are you going to do that? I mean, there's a wedge right here. I don't know if you see this wedge, but let's just talk about it. So you see that wedge line right there? So you kind of want to watch that because it's, you know, wedge lines, I mean, you're just being walked down, right? And you're holding these levels and you keep rejecting the 50. So it's a pretty clear trade right here. Like if you can get over this level of 1710, so say 17 and a quarter, you can try, but I just don't see the volume spike at all. It's definitely the right space. I mean, we know that, you know, that's the space you want to be in, but it just doesn't seem to be getting that oomph that we're looking for, is it? So we just want to make sure that we actually get the, you know, the push. And we just don't seem to be getting that right now. So, you know, that would be my focal point on it. But let's take a look at J. I mean, I just don't see the reason to jump right into that right now. So in regards to J, yeah, I mean, you're pulled back and you're holding that 50 and 200. So you have a buyer, right? There are people buying that. Earnings are out, so you have that behind you. But this is a bear flag. Let's get rid of this. And let's just make sure that what we're looking at. So this is a bear flag. Now, the one good thing about this trade, you know, see the earnings over here. Dividends coming out. Dividend usually, do we sell down usually on the dividend? Yeah. So usually you're selling down on that dividend, so you know that's coming in about 17 days. But here's what I do like about this. So let's clear out the data, and you can see that we're sitting on the 50 and 200. But look at this. This is really interesting. So you're pretty wedged in there on your trading range. I mean, that's your trading range, right? So you have a bear flag on top of essentially a double top, right? Because you undercut up here. So here's would be my concern. You need to get above the 21. I would avoid this until you're above the 21-day moving average. That's how I would play this. Because you're not able to close above that. You have a bear flag. The bear flag is being supported and not breaking by the 50 and the 200. But you need to flip that level, right? So if you can flip that level right there and you can drive higher, that's what you want to see. And you just don't have that yet. You just don't have that at all yet, Bannon. So go from there. Good morning. What's going on, bro? So, you know, the one thing I do like is just seeing the complete lack of participation by people. You're seeing participation of people just completely dropping off. That's a good sign, actually, for the market. It just means that people are throwing in the towel, which is what you want to see. This is just going to keep going, isn't it? I want to look at this for a moment. This is something that I really would love to get a short off, but I need it to pop. Uber was a perfect short right at that close and then just completely rejected. So they're going to be very interesting to watch. I do want to touch base on something. There's an article out, I believe it's TechCrunch, talking about Zoom. And just keep this on your radar. So it's talking about Zoom and it's talking about Peloton. And the fact that they lost over $200 billion. And they're saying that these can go much lower. Very interesting article by a tech company or someone that's focused on tech saying these things are nowhere near done. So I thought that was somewhat fascinating. I've been saying 17 for some time. Here we are, probably going to 12 next. So just kind of keep that in mind. There goes BPT jumping out. So you might get over this today. Where are we looking at? Did we break that wedge line? Oof. Yep, you're back over that wedge line. Sometimes it's best to wait for the close. You know, sometimes it's hard to wait for the close, but sometimes it makes sense. Look at that. So, wow. So let's just keep going. DWAC shorts. What's going on, Steven? Yeah, I mean, look, the time to short this is when he tweets. Okay? If he tweets, short it. Other than that, you're just waiting for him to do something else. All you're doing, just waiting for something to happen that's going to scare you in or out of that position. And that's how you have to focus on it. So it's not something that I would act either way upon right now. I would just sit, watch, and wait. It's not something that I would deal with. Could you short it? Yeah, I think they're done. I mean, look, I do not want to compete. The one thing I know is that I know that Elon's smarter than me, right? And because you only know what you know, right? So I know the guy's smarter than me. Do I really want to be in competition with him? So for me, what I think the best trade in the world is to assume that this, you know, this might go higher, this might not go higher, right? But 5 years from now, I think Twitter could be the dominant force versus Facebook. I really believe that. I think that's going to be very surprising what happens there and how he fixes that company. But, you know, that said, you know, do you really want to be in Truth Social while they try to figure it out and try to get it together? Or do you want to be in the company that has, you know, the majority of the social media traffic already that they're going to fix, right? And get rid of some of the issues. And he's identified the issues, and he's pretty clear about what those issues are. So, Google. So I think you could pop back up to this level. Maybe. I'd be really careful here. Nobody expected Facebook to crush and Google to miss. Not miss so much as just slow. Nobody predicted that. And that's exactly what you saw. So you have a trend that's going on right here. And the fact that you're seeing this is troubling. But you see that line? So I'd be really careful here. Could it work? Yeah, maybe you can get some kind of cross like this, right? Maybe you can get some kind of 5/8 cross that bounces you up. This is something that we were using in the trading room. Hold on, FNGD. But what happened, right? Trade didn't work yet, right? It broke down already, and looked like it was going to go, and then it just didn't. So you're seeing a lot of this, right? With the gap and the go, but you're still building a flag. And I think that's one of the things that we have to look at with some of these. You're still building this kind of wonky flag here, right? More of a pendant, I would say, than a flag, right? But it's still there. This is FANG, the 3X inverse bear fund. Now look at the bull fund, right? I mean, that's not really going anywhere, is it? So, I mean, a matter of fact, all you've done is make, right, support, which was here, has now become what? Resistance. Well, that's not really a ringing endorsement of something that you need to jump into, is it? Right? I mean, that's not, you're not really looking at that and going, wow. So keep that in mind. Okay? Keep that in mind. And I think that's something you really should focus on. You know, I'd be really careful here. So we need to see what the Fed's going to do. And anything that you're doing ahead of the Fed can change instantaneously by what the Fed does today. And on top of that, you know, sandwich, we have Biden speaking at the same time for some reason, which just, I'm going to throw this out there. I don't care where you are politically. We've never had, in all the years I've been trading, we've never had a president speak the same day as at the same exact time as the Fed. It's beyond crazy to me. It's got nothing to do with politics, but just the timing is awful. Adam and MOS. What's going on, Shane? So my read on MOS yesterday was completely off. I'll just start there, just so you can take it with a grain of salt. You know, this is getting some action this morning. You're seeing some volume. I'm not sure why. Look, something like this, you at least get over some level. I just want to see that little name for a moment. So that's what I would focus on. Focus on that 1339. Now, do you have earnings coming out? Do you have some kind of driver? No, your earnings are already out. Okay. MOS, my read was completely wrong. So I was thinking that they were going to come in based upon that quarter. And that's not what happened at all. They actually did well on that quarter. And I think that's where what we have to see. So for me, I was shocked that it bounced. I actually thought that we would break. That's not what happened at all. Here, look at it. All we did was test that level and find a buyer right there off the open. Boom. That buyer stepped up and then the stock went. So that's definitely something to be aware of. And look at the space. So apparently everyone realizes that we need food. So these look like they're going to go higher, which is surprising because fertilizer futures are down and wheat came in. But this war is not going anywhere. It's just not going anywhere. I'm surprised that wheat's come in. Corn's holding in there. Right? There's more problems with corn now than wheat, it looks like. But you're just trading around in them. But MOS can keep going. I'm just going to point this out. These are getting worse and worse as the day goes on. So this could actually get a lot worse than people think it can. See how this is rolling already? You can't find any buyers. There's nobody there. And Uber's already down $2. So from that close, right, from where you went to that close and rallied, you're down $2 already. So just keep that in mind. That's all you've done here. And I think it's worth mentioning. MOS you could look at. So how would you play MOS? Well, first you have to realize that you're in the middle of a Fed meeting. Okay. So you kind of have to watch that level, that 68.14 level, and just make sure it's there. I got rid of the pre and post. These 5-8 crosses work extremely well right now. I can't stress that enough. So when you see them, you want to pay attention. Now, dropping the way that you have, rallying the way that we have, just focus on it and just let it do its thing. I'm in no hurry here, but I do like the action. If you flip this level, which it looks like you might today, you're welcome to try it. It could work. But, Fed's in charge today. Just realize that. The Fed is in charge today. And so you're going to see light volume until then. What's going on, Nat? ABBV. Yeah, I mean, so here's what. So when you see things like this, be careful. So because this isn't really an island reversal. I mean, you kind of say that it is, but it's not really because you didn't really reverse. You stayed with the trade. See, you have this island right here, right? So essentially, you gap down to here, and so this is all by itself. So that's not what you want to see, not at all. I mean, that's the exact opposite of what you want to see. So let's throw this in and see where you are in regards to the 50 and get rid of the 5 and the 8 so we're just not clouded. So that's pretty clear what happened there, right? So there's not really much to do. You couldn't hold the 21. The 50 is pointing down. I really wouldn't go near this unless you're looking to scalp it. Earnings were not ideal, apparently. So this is definitely not something I'd be rushing into or going near. I would be avoiding it. If you want to short it, that's where you short it. I mean, if you're looking to short it, it does help me if you tell me if you're looking long or short. But if you were looking to short it, there's your stop right here. 50 and 3/4, that's your stop, right? So just FYI, that's pretty clean spot to pick a stop. Kind of go from there. I don't know if you get back down here or not, but you could absolutely do that. And if you don't like, just the idea of doing it that way, if you break this is going to get super ugly. So keep that in mind. And you could trade right back down to these levels. So, I mean, that's a pretty bad break, especially with this gap right here. That's not what you want to see, Nat. CEIX. Yep. I mean, it's all about energy. I mean, it really is. I mean, there's not much more to say. Good earnings, right? And you have this whole range right here. I mean, that trade couldn't be easier, right? I mean, look, breaks down, fails, holds the 21, bounces off the 21. You're going to be, right? I mean, you should be above the 5. You should be above the 8, right? So there's not really much to say here. I mean, you take that out if you want to try it. If it takes this out, this 50-40, which it might off the open, it's not really much more to say. It should bounce, and it might be worth taking a look at, right? Look, the whole energy sector is going to bounce today. They're going to try and get ahead of AMR, right? They're going to try and get ahead of this, okay, in the earnings. They're going to try. That whole sector is going to move. So this is not getting better. The war's not getting better. It's getting worse. Russia said they're going to raise prices on the EU to punish them for the sanctions, and that's not good. And the EU is saying, well, maybe we can get off Russian oil by the end of the year. So their costs are going to go up. And at the end of the day, all it means is that Russia is going to sell oil to India and China. And they're not going to bow to, what the West wants them to do. That's very clear. The economic warfare is just silly, in my opinion. You're just hurting people. You're hurting Europeans. You're hurting the U.S. They should be trying to come to some kind of peace accord. So, but that's not what they're doing. So energy is going to go higher until that changes. It's really that simple. Uber's just broke down 27. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this break into the teens today, frankly. It just looks absolutely awful. CEIX I like a lot. GNW, what's up, Lonnie? So, Genworth. Yeah, I mean, earnings are out. Let's see what the stock did on those earnings. So you closed at 4. You're sitting at 4. You really haven't done much, right? This is a tough trade because you're just in this huge trading range. So, I mean, look at this. So I'm not so sure that you're going to go anywhere. I don't know if they did a huge secondary to keep the company afloat 5-7 years ago, and they're just working off all those shares. But it's not something I would be going near. Look, I don't know if you remember when this happened with AIG, but it kind of seems like we're heading there, right? Like it looks like some kind of event happened, like it did with AIG, where GNW just completely implodes, and that's what you're seeing here. That's what you're seeing. So I wouldn't go near this. I don't know what you're going to make off of it, Lonnie. Like, I just don't see it. So I just don't see the trade. Maybe if you get over that, you could look at it. Over here, Uber's now 26.50. So whatever's going on that call, it's not going well. It's down 3 points from the close now. So it's basically giving back all its game. Do I think the 50 basis point rate hike is baked in? I think that's baked in. I think 50 basis points is baked in. Now, how do I know that? Because you can look at the futures markets to determine that. And I think that's something you kind of have to look at. Now, what's not baked in is what they say about the Fed. What does the Fed say about their balance sheet? That's not baked in. He has not been somebody that's been like a shock and awe kind of guy. I was listening to some analysts this morning on this. The one guy out of Goldman was saying that, and that's an issue. So it's definitely an issue, but it's definitely something you have to think about and how you're going to do that. I think that it's baked in. Yeah, I do think it's baked in, RJ. I do. What's going on, Sean? Could you look at GTE, please? Yep. So, maybe these go. I don't know. I mean, you have all these levels up here. You're unable to break them, right? So I think we looked at this before and we said, let's wait till $2. And we're still not there. And it's like a month later. It doesn't mean that you can't get there. Look, energy is dynamic. And what's going on out there is completely dynamic. And you're seeing, I'll refer to it as a game of hot potato, where these energy names, people want to own them, but they're afraid that the war is going to end. And then when the war ends, they know how they're going to come in. Because they are. They're going to get hammered the day that the war ends. And you're going to have to be aware of that. So you're going to deal with massive volatility in these names. So that's why I always say when they're popping, you scale out of them. I think that's how you have to look at it. But I wouldn't go near this till $2. And then I'd kind of go from there. So what's going on, that? CLSK. So you see this level right here? I mean, maybe you hold that. Maybe. So, I mean, it's possible you hold it. It's possible that if there's a huge short position in this, they want to cover before earnings. It's not my kind of trade. It really isn't. Like, look, I mean, you just have no real volume. No one's really paying attention to it. It's not something I would get involved with. I'd be careful there, Nad. Could it work? Yeah. I mean, like, if you want to try it, this is how you try it. Just because I don't like a trade doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means it's not for me. So, like, here, take a look at this. So what I would focus on is that level that I just drew. Here, let's blow this up so you can see what I'm talking about. So 632 versus 650. See that? So, I mean, that's really what your stop has to be. And then you have to figure out what you're going to do after earnings. So, like, if you're down in your trade, do you sell it before earnings? Do you hold into earnings? Do you think you're going to get this, right? This is where you close before earnings, and then this was the next day, and then the move higher. I mean, depends on you and what you want to do. It's not really my kind of trade. But if you did, you'd have to use that 632 as a stop. I mean, that's how you do it. So let's just keep going. Damien. U.S. trade deficit widened to 109B. Your thoughts? What does it mean for traders? It means a trade deficit widened. I mean, look, you have policy that's going on, right? You have the policy that's going on of this administration. It's not a political statement. They have a policy. That policy needs to be understood. Right now, we are not producing enough to worry about the trade deficit. Like we're not. That's not even on this administration's radar. Right? The trade deficit's not even on the radar. It's bad. Now, how much worse do you think the trade deficit's going to widen when Shanghai opens? Right? So it's bad. It's not good. So it means that our GDP is going to be less. I mean, that's really what it boils down to, right? If the trade deficit widens, it widens because we're not selling goods or services, right? If it widens. If you're not selling goods or services, someone else is selling goods and services, meaning that they're rallying, and that's what's happening. We're a consumer. Right? We're the largest consumer in the world. Give it to us and we consume it, right? And that's what you're dealing with. So when that widens, it means GDP contraction or slowing of GDP. Shane, when you say 1 cent under the low and you're out, I sell based on this. Yesterday I asked you about re-entry. You say don't buy here. Now today you're saying trade. Be more honest. Sure. So you have to learn how to trade for yourself. And that's what these videos are about. And that's why I do this, so that you can learn. I am definitely not your financial advisor. If you can't make your own decisions, you probably shouldn't be listening to me. And you should be focused on how you can get better and make your own decisions. You are in an extremely dynamic market that's very tough to trade. And if you stay with the chain, you're going to get really, really good, because these are the kinds of markets that you want to trade in, not the ones where everything just goes up and it's easy, right? So if it was easy, you don't win the Super Bowl because it's easy, right? You win it because you worked your butt off. So something like this, for me, this is really simple. If you listen to people that are in the trading room, I use the close. Now, did we close below that level? No, we haven't. Okay. So I know what I'm using for my trade. My advice is if that you don't have a setup and you don't know what you're going to use, that you use the one tick below and get out of the way. Because I don't know if you're going to hold till $9. So number one, you have to come up with a system that works for you to protect your capital. But if you're going to rely on other people to trade for you, just go get a broker. It'll save you so much time. I'm not saying that to be facetious. Just go get a broker. Go get someone to help you, and don't worry about it. But number one rule of trading is take personal responsibility for your trades. If you can't do that, don't trade. Again, not being facetious. To me, BPT is pretty clear. I mean, I've been talking about trading this since $4, $4.80. I'm sorry you're getting stopped out and they're keep stopping you out, but that's the game right now. So the question is, do you think energy is going higher? If you think energy is going higher, then this should be on your radar every single day and looking for the next setup. If you don't think it's going to go higher, right, get out of the way. There are multiple times where I miss trades. Multiple. Here. So look at this. Okay, everybody thought this was over. All right. Then they come out, crush earnings, and earn $8. And the stock runs up. Now it's at what? 180. Stock will be $200 before you know it. Okay, this one comes out. Same industry, same exact industry, misses. Okay, it is what it is, Shane. So, to reiterate, take personal responsibility and then just keep there and get back in and out of the trade. It's not a big deal. It's only a big deal if you make it one. Thanks, was a free trade. Got out at 30 minutes to stop loss. Yep, anytime, Lonnie. I think you just got to be really careful with those kinds of names. I really do. I think you got to be way more careful with those kinds of names. They're just super thin. Yeah, I don't know that 50.75 is baked in. I know that they're floating it out there. I don't think J-Powell's going to do that because I think that admits that they screwed up big time. So just keep that in mind. I don't know what's going to happen, Dan. The Fed's going to stick to 50 basis points because if he doesn't, look, the Fed can raise rates anytime they want. So instead of raising 50 basis points, they could have done an emergency 25-cent meeting, and that would have been the end of it. Okay? And they didn't. They just raised 50 basis points. They're going to raise another, and we'll go from there. I don't think they're going to do 75. I don't know if we rally. I have no idea what Biden's going to say. I really don't. That's like the thing. That's the biggest. That's the big thing for me. ATER. You have to think about why are you having a meeting at the same time Jay Powell's speaking? Like it's insanity to me. One, everyone's going to watch Jay Powell. They're not going to watch you. So, because he's in control of the Fed policy, not you. So, I don't really understand why he's doing it at that time. In over 20 years of trading, I've never seen anybody speak at the same time as a Fed chairman. So here's your line going straight across. You can actually see it over here too, right? So hopefully you can see this. So, I mean, it's exact, right? 580. So you're trying. Now, this was a flyer that we played with a couple times and did really well. You got to break through this level and then push. I wouldn't be going near this unless you're trying to play earnings. And I think you're coming up to earnings. I mean, go for it if you want to try it. I mean, I'm not getting in front of that. You're rejecting here. You have the two long red nasty bars that were just massive selling. I mean, why would I get in front of that? So, Dan, I sent you a DM. You need to respond to it if you want those. If you want those things, because I'm placing that order today. Let's go take a look at Qualcomm, see what's going on there. Yep, I mean, earnings are out. Stock did well. You're holding the 21. Very little to say here. You're still in a massive downtrend. So if you get rid of all this data, so doesn't really look great, does it? So you're at the top end of the range. Just see if you break out. Look, AMD's numbers could have effects on all these names. I mean, it just showed huge demand. Huge demand. So just keep that in mind. I think it was the top end of a range there. I'd watch that. Jane, you need to figure out how to trade on your own. Don't rely on it. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, you have to think for yourself. Like, if you can't think for yourself, you're gonna have issues. You can't rely on anybody. LNTH. Everybody trades differently. Everyone has different risk tolerances. So, yeah, look, like names like this that are doing this, I don't know why this is doing what it's doing, but it sure as heck is doing it, right? So let's just go here and see if I can figure it out. So earnings. I mean, they're crushing. Whatever this company is, they're crushing, right? I mean, earnings here, then goes sideways. Earnings go sideways. I mean, look at these. Look at this earnings growth. I don't know what this company does, but wow, 8 cents, 25 cents, $1. I mean, I don't know what's going on here, but something's going on, and they are crushing it. So I would definitely be focused on that. Now, these upper channels, you're trying to flip it, and you're rejecting. Usually, if you reject these upper channels, they fit perfectly with Bollinger Bands at 2 standard deviations, right? See that? Usually upper channels, when they flip, they fit real close in the Bollinger Bands. So if I start breaking down here, it's realistic that I'm going to go back to this. Okay, that's how you kind of have to look at that trade. So you need to flip this before you go. Now, any pullback to the 21, look what happens when you get there. It holds. 21, it holds. So this thing has worked up and now holds its 21-day moving average, which has become a demarcation line and an area that you could look at buying it if that happens. I wouldn't buy it here unless it flips. I'd like to buy it closer to 21-day. So, yeah, I mean, it could easily drop down. Like, look, you got to understand something. When you start seeing names like this, right? Like, you have to understand this. When you start seeing names like Lockheed Martin coming down and breaking the 50, right? You start seeing Raytheon come down, okay? And what is that, RTX? So, and you start seeing these names break down, right? It's telling you that maybe somebody knows something and they're selling defensive names because this war is coming to an end, right? All of a sudden, wheat broke down and now it's bouncing again, right? So you have to look at the market and try to make a decision on what you think is going to happen and how much risk you're willing to take. From 12 to 8, are you willing to hold that stock? Because that's where you're going. You're below the 50-day. So I can't build, you can't build a system around tomorrow we're going to go up over the 50 because it just doesn't work that way. So yeah, but you absolutely could have got to $8. I would have bought the heck out of it. It got to $8, but yeah, you absolutely can. So let's just keep going. I don't know, John. I don't know if double bottom's in. This is what I talked about in last night's newsletter. Here, let me show you this. So let's get rid of this and let's get rid of all this for a moment and remove all segments. I'm going to get rid of everything. And let me just show you this because this is really all I'm focused on. Like, I got to see what he says today. And again, I'm really curious why Biden's speaking at the same time. But I just want to focus on this. I don't use stochastics as a trigger to buy stock because it's a lagging indicator. What I will do is I will use that to determine the magnitude or length of the move higher. So the longer that I am oversold, which I have been oversold, if you take a look at it, but this is just stochastics, overbought, oversold, from here, right, to here, okay? Now, if over this period of time, right, you are below that line. So look at the time that you were below this line here, okay, or above this line. Look what happened because of that. The longer you were under on stochastics, the greater the move up can be. Do I think a double bottom's in? I don't know that you have enough to decide that yet. What I will say is this. Just speaking super technical, right? Click on this, draw this across, and you get a downward trend line, okay? Where's your first real higher high? Well, you could argue that this is, right? But it's really not because this is a bear flag. So a minimum, you have to get above that before you could even say you have a double bottom. This is the first part of a double bottom, the undercut, right? So let's get the pre and post out of the way. So this is the first part of a double bottom. So here's a double bottom. Let me move that up a little bit. I'm off because of the pre and post. So here's your double bottom, 410, undercut, flush. Everyone thinks it's going lower, including myself. What happens? Guess what they do? They don't take it lower. They take it up. So you could get to 438 and still be in a downtrend. You could get to, and that's even a short-term downtrend, you could get to 450 and still be in a downtrend. So a double bottom to me really means that I have to clear the trend line, right? And then I have to clear a higher high after clearing the trend line, which puts me up here. So you're 10 to 15% away before we can confirm a true double bottom. But for me, I would watch this level very, very closely. And I'd watch what they're saying. I think the easiest trade to do out there today is this. I really believe that. Like, this is either going to go up or it's going to go down. It's not prophetic, but you're either going to take out the low or you're not going to take out the low. Like, that's it. Like, that's how you should be viewing it, right? You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how we're going to respond to Powell speaking. And I have no idea what the heck Biden's going to say, but it usually doesn't go well. So keep it that way. Think about it that way. Apple. Hi, Anna. So Apple, we've been getting batted around. Look, it's holding. You're still in a downward trend, but you can get to this 164. If this bounces, here, hold on. Let's pull up the 21-day here and go from there. Okay, so I can bounce to this level. Okay, by the time I get up to here, these levels are going to be there, unless you have a huge move today. So this can move. I'd be really careful here on doing anything that's not long until you see what happens. I mean, you got to be leaning towards the long side here that the market's going to squeeze because you're so oversold. I mean, that's really kind of how you have to play it. You're not overbought right now at all on anything. You're grossly oversold on everything. You know, I think it was it Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan that had a statement about this being one of the largest oversold positions we've had in years. And he's right, and they're right. So that doesn't mean that you go up. Like when we traded in, let me just show you this so you get it. When we traded during this period of time, right? I mean, look how oversold you were on the months. For months, right? For years you were oversold, right? So you're not even there yet. So it can always get worse, but just got to keep that in mind. But when you bounce, it bounces. And that's what I think could happen with the Qs, and in tandem that could happen with stocks like Apple. So, but tech's okay, but energy is the strongest. METC. Yeah, I like the little guys too, but I really want to see liquidity. And you can see that right here. You're just not getting any liquidity here. And earnings, it didn't really go very well last time, right? I mean, it kind of did, but then you traded up. You're coming into earnings again. You might want to wait for AMR to come out with earnings and then kind of see what happens. You're trapped under the 50. My take on Uber is that they're trying to get ahead of a problem. They're saying they're basically saying we're not. They're basically saying we're not Lyft. I mean, that seems to be their new slogan. That whole industry is going to have a problem. That whole industry is going to have an issue. So I don't know. I mean, it's not something I would be going near. I think that you could trade up. Look, if you rallied over this today, it would have given me more confidence. Okay, so let's get rid of all the indicators. And this is where we closed, right? So what happened when we got to where we closed? Everyone and their sister sold. Everybody sold. Get me out. I don't want to deal with this today. I got too much other stuff I have to deal with. Came back down. Now, does this hold? Does this hold? I don't know. It's holding for now. But if that breaks, it's going much lower. It's not a name I would be playing. I'd be more interested in shorting Lyft on rallies if we get a rally. It might just go into the teens. Just might become a teenager. So, but it's not definitely. I would not be buying Uber. Maybe if I got over the close of yesterday, I would look at it. Maybe NPK. All right, so we're gonna have to speed this along here. NPK. So I can't go near that. I mean, that's not something I would remotely go near. I don't know what it does on earnings, but it's not something that I would go near at all. Felix. Yeah, I saw that on the LNTH. And I think that that's kind of one of the issues. I have this on another screen too. Hold on. Let me pull up what he's talking about so you can see it. So you can see how this is pointing down, right, while we're going up. So you have a negative divergence there. That's what Ro's referring to, which is a good read. Yeah, please like the live stream. It helps us get in front of more people. And the more likes that we get, the better off I am as far as supporting the channel. So if you want to continue for me to do this, I think people like when I do it. I mean, I can always just do them private, but I prefer not to. That way people can start learning. SPY is definitely ripping today. Maybe, Brooklyn, maybe. I mean, look, I'll tell you right now, I carried an overnight trade in this. Not a huge one, but I have an overnight trade in this. Because I think that you could rip. I think that we are oversold, and we could see a little bit of a bounce here. Because you're starting to finally see good earnings, and you're starting to see what's happening there. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with what you're saying about the 460 level. Hey, Ahmed. Yep. Please like the video. Likes are free. The only thing that can hold out there, Felix, is energy, right? That's the only thing that can hold, right? Because if you think about energy from this perspective, right? I'm just going to show you something. So here, I'm going to wrap. I got to wrap up and hop in the room. Let me just show you this before we begin, or before I end. Before I begin, definitely going to need more coffee today. See, this is the 80s. See this move? This is the only other time in history, okay, where the CPI was higher than the 10-year. And since 1980s, or since they've been taking this data on the 10-month or the 10-year, this is the only time in history where CPI was higher than the 10-year. Okay? We have the same exact condition right here. So that means commodities go higher. I mean, that's what it means. So what I'm getting at is, I don't see how this does not continue. I just don't see it, right? It should just simply continue, and I think it's going to. So if SPY rips, is there a chance for Amazon to go up? There's always a chance, but you have a huge short position there, so there's a chance, but there's better names. Thanks, B. Appreciate it. Uber, you got it, Viv. I just went through it, but let's wrap up with Uber, and then we'll go from there. So, they came out with earnings this morning. I believe they're supposed to come out tonight. That's your demarcation line. If you break that low, get out of the way if you're thinking about being long, or if you are long, 26.44. See how you got to the close and you couldn't break that close? You got to watch that. So just be careful, Vivian. And we'll go from there. You're welcome, Sally. All right, I'm out of here. Any questions, reach out. Dennis, I see this. I'm going to cover it. I know I missed one. I'm trying to cover everybody in the morning so that we can kind of go from there. I wouldn't go near this with a 10-foot pole. I mean, I've been calling it a zero since back here. I've tried to trade it a couple times, but I think it's an absolute zero. All right, I got to jump. I'm already late. Have a good day, everyone. Trade to win.